Thank you, everybody, for joining us tonight. My name is Patrick Botts Forbes. I am the LAFD CERT Central Bureau Coordinator. I'm also the Neighborhood Team Program Los Angeles Central Bureau Director. Tonight's topic is on neighborhood resilience and security after a disaster. Normally, we talk about what to do right after an earthquake, minutes after, hours after. But the reality is that a major earthquake along the San Andreas Fault, especially if it trips off multiple fault lines, will result in weeks of the system not working. That is to say, fire department, police, 911, the hospital system, EMS, our markets, our gas lines, our gas stations, pretty much everything we take for granted in our everyday life will be disrupted for weeks, probably even months. If you look at disasters that occur in other parts of the country, Cat 5 hurricane hitting the Gulf Coast, for example, it takes years to completely recover from that. And certainly days, weeks, months after, life is still majorly disrupted. And we can expect the same thing to happen if there is a major earthquake along the San Andreas Fault in Southern California, let alone in Los Angeles. So what we do together as neighbors, as neighborhood blocks, as communities will determine how well we survive the disaster. But rest assured, we will recover. Things will go back to normal. We've not had a major disaster in any of our lifetimes, in any of our recent history, where we did not recover from it. And so it's just a matter of time. And getting individually prepared, getting prepared as a neighborhood, pre-planning is how we will better survive that, whatever it is, the earthquake, that's typically what we're going to experience in Southern California. Let's be serious. So we're going to mostly talk about an earthquake in this case. In addition to the city resources and county resources not being available, most of the firefighters and police in Los Angeles, LAFD, LAPD, they actually don't live in the city of Los Angeles. So they're going to be traveling from outside the area to get here. And if the highways are down, you have freeways that have collapsed, overpasses that are down, they will have trouble getting in. So the immediate response after an earthquake is going to be severely delayed. We will get mutual aid resources from Northern California and from outside the state. But if you think about it logistically, those resources aren't spooled up ready to go at a moment's notice. It's going to take at least a day to get resources in any subsistence endeavor from Northern California, let alone from outside the state. And then when they do get here, they will be spread very thin. And so it's going to take probably several days just to spool up and actually start any meaningful response from outside the area. So we definitely, the Red Cross says you need to be prepared to be on your own for 3 days. But actually what we're talking about is more like 3 weeks, really. And part of the problem that we have is that our markets actually run on what's called a just-in-time business model. And that is to say, they have exactly the number of items calculated out on their shelves and in reserve to last them until the next delivery cycle. And usually they get deliveries a couple times a week. So if you think about it, they only have enough goods and service and supplies to last 2, maybe 3 days at the most. This complicates things if you talk about the power being out, if you talk about highways being down. Big rigs can't really traverse an area unless there's good roads. And if your roads are broken up or you have debris down, those trucks are not going to go anywhere. They're certainly not going to go into the smaller neighborhoods, which may not get their roads cleared for days. And by that time, the markets will definitely be out of food. The reality of it is really that most people, especially if you tell them to only be prepared for 3 days, most people are only going to have 3 to 7 days worth of food and water. And if you only have 3 days of food and maybe even less than that of water, around day 5, you're going to start becoming desperate. Other people are going to start becoming desperate. And certainly by day 7, there's going to be panic for the people who have not been prepared. And that becomes a major problem. The reality is that single family home neighborhoods are not going to get a lot of support right away from the city, from the county, from the mutual aid, from the Red Cross. It's going to take several weeks to get into those smaller neighborhoods, especially the ones farther out. And so they really do need to focus on being able to be prepared and survive on their own without that support. You and your neighbors um, are really going to have to be on your own. You're going to have to have food, water, toilet paper, other essentials, survival without the grid, without power, without natural gas, without gas in your cars. If you think about it, if you go to a gas station, the pumps run on electricity. As soon as the earthquake occurs, even something like Northridge, which was really a localized disaster in Northridge, the power was out throughout the city. And even now we're seeing during red flag days, Southern California Edison's actually cutting power to a good chunk of the valley 4 days at a time. And that means that the gas stations can't pump gas. So you really should keep no less than a half a tank of gas in your car, because when there's an earthquake or if the power's out, you can't go get gas. If you drive till you're empty and that's when that earthquake occurs, you're going to run out of gas. Additionally, we should be treating minor injuries. A minor injury, a cut, a scrape, stepping on something like a nail, glass, whatever, left untreated will get infected. And a foot injury, especially that becomes infected, can become life-threatening if it's not treated. So treating those minor injuries promptly, cleaning them, bandaging them, putting triple antibiotic to kill any germs that are getting in there are going to save lives in the long term, or actually in the short term. So we need to be on top of that. That means that you should get basic first aid CPR training and be able to learn how to do the basic skills, because it's not a good time to learn after the earthquake how to clean and bandage up an injury. We expect everybody should be prepared on their own and as a household. And as neighbors, you should be encouraging your neighbors to get prepared. When I go out and I do presentations and I ask people if they're prepared for an earthquake, unfortunately, the typical response tends to be, well, I don't have to be prepared. I'm just going to go to your house. That doesn't work. I'm not going to let you in and have my supplies. My supplies are my supplies. And that's being selfish to a certain degree. But on a larger scale, if I give you my supplies, then I don't have any supplies. The expectation is that we should have 3 to 4 weeks of shelf-stable food. That's canned goods, stuff that can last multiple years. Some of the canned goods can last upwards of 25 years. Water typically lasts 5 years in a plastic container that's sealed, but some of the canned water can last up to 25 years as well. What that actually sounds like, we say a gallon per person per day. What you're looking at is 21 to 30 gallons per person and per pet. Every pet should also have a gallon per pet per day. In addition to that, any prescription medications, make sure you have a 1 month reserve of that, because you can't expect to go to CVS and get your prescription if there's been a major earthquake. For one thing, those pharmacies are going to be massively impacted as well. And the people who have been injured and getting care for they're going to get prescription medication as well, and they're going to be making runs on those pharmacies. You should be able to go to an insurance company and ask them for a 1 month backup. I don't know exactly the details on that, but reach out to your insurance company and ask them for an emergency 1 month supply, and you should be able to get it. Additionally, it's a good idea to have barbecues either running on propane or butane. I know some of us have natural gas, but we can expect those natural gas lines to break and not be able to function. And if you have your barbecue attached via natural gas line as well, that's not going to work either. So having multiple propane tanks is going to be a godsend and really an asset when there's no power and there's no natural gas flowing to your home. And things that people forget often are flashlights. If the power's out, it's going to get dark. It's going to get very dark. And not having just one or two flashlights in your household, every person in your household should have a flashlight or two with extra batteries. And you want to keep these batteries outside the flashlight. As soon as you put an alkaline battery into the flashlight, it starts to degrade and starts to drain. And as many of us know, if you leave batteries in something over time, they will corrode. And then it will break the flashlight, or you're going to have to scrape that out or tear out the battery to put a fresh one in. So keep your batteries new in the container, just alongside your flashlight, or have them stored somewhere where you can access fresh batteries. Additionally, have some money on hand, but store them in small denominations, ones, fives, and tens. If you go to someone who's selling water because you don't have any, and you only have 20s on you, that bottle of water is going to cost you $20, regardless of whatever. If they're charging $5, but you only have 20, they may or may not make change for you. And then you're looking at $20 bottle of water. And don't expect to be able to go to the ATM because, again, there's not going to be any power. So that ATM is not going to work. And even if it did, that ATM will probably get drained of all its money and not restocked anytime soon. I mentioned first aid. You really want to have a good sized first aid kit, possibly even what's called a trauma kit. But that doesn't do you any good if you don't have the training. I can't emphasize and stress how important it is to take first aid training. Don't just take basic first aid CPR. If you have the opportunity, take more advanced medical, emergency medical responder, or Red Cross is responding to emergencies. It's more of an advanced first aid class and goes more in depth. The basic first aid CPR AED tries to squeeze way too much into an 8-hour class. And the people who've taken these classes typically come out saying it was like a fire hose was sprayed at them and they didn't retain the information. You might have to take these first aid classes a couple of times to get the information. But if you can find a good advanced first aid class or emergency medical responder class, or even an EMT class, that spreads it out over multiple days and you're going to learn a lot more. But these skills are perishable. You do need to recertify every 2 years, and that's because you lose this information if you're not using it. So it's very important to remember to keep your skills up to date and constantly learn more, take additional training. Communications is going to be vital. Having a first family radio service or an FRS radio for every person in your household, plus additional batteries, or a ham radio, or both, is going to be vital to being able to communicate, not only within your household, but also with your neighbors. And you need to practice. If you pick up a radio for the first time right after an earthquake, it's going to be a disaster. And the people who come to our monthly radio trainings will tell you if it is the first time they've used a radio, it is not something that's easy to use. So you need to practice. You need to make sure that you know how to use this radio before you actually need to use it. Additionally, sanitation is going to be critical. If you don't have water coming into your home, you're not going to be able to flush your toilet. If you don't have a way to get rid of or isolate the human waste, if we're talking about 3 weeks worth of time, that's a huge amount of human waste that's building up. That becomes toxic. That becomes extremely dangerous to keep. So contractor size trash bags, kitty litter, bleach, waterless soap. I mention waterless soap because, again, if you don't have water flowing through your home, you're not going to be able to wash your hands. And you don't want to use that gallon of water that you have for cooking for hydration on washing your hands or other things. They do make waterless showers. They're basically towels that you unwrap and you can wipe yourself with to clean yourself and maintain sanitation. Everybody should have a large trash can that you can seal. Additionally, in terms of like a portable toilet, A 5-gallon bucket that they sell at Home Depot with kitty litter put into a trash bag makes for a very good emergency toilet. They do actually make toilet seat covers that will fit onto the top of these 5-gallon buckets, and it is really just a toilet at that point. But again, you want some sort of tight-filling lid in order to seal that off when you're not using it. It's critical that you start to plan ahead of time. Plan on where you're going to meet your family members. If something happens to your home or you're separated, people are not at home, you're at work, your kids are at school, it's important to know where you're going to meet. If for some reason you can't get to your neighborhood, your home, whatever, if there's a giant crater where your house was, you need somewhere else that everybody knows to go. And additionally, if you're in the home, practice escaping the home. If there's a fire in your hallway, if you see the picture here, if there's a fire in the main hallway, how do people get out? Are there additional exits? Is there a back door? Are there windows that you can pop open and escape from? Practice these things. They're called EDIF, exit drills in the home. Make sure that you know what to do before the earthquake happens. That's not the time to think about it. If there's a fire in your hall, that's not the time to think about how am I going to get out of here. One good thing to practice is actually go camping. Go camping in the woods for a weekend. You can't just drive to the store and you're going to realize, oh, I did not bring these supplies that I actually do need. I didn't even think about it. And then when you have a couple weekends under your belt and you've practiced, now try camping for a week. You're going to find out things that you didn't even think about, and you're going to find that it's dramatically different not going without these supplies for a couple of days to suddenly not having these supplies for an entire week. And if you do these a few times, you're going to be more proficient in knowing what you need for your individual preparedness and being able to see how well you can survive without hot showers, without being able to use the toilet, without flowing water. But at the same time, as we talk about this, remember that we live in communities, and a lot of people want to be prepared to live on their own, and that's great if you can do that, but it's very difficult to plan for everything. The people who camp for weeks at a time are going to be much better at this than the people who go glamping or the people who have never gone camping before. And so you might think you have everything that you need, but after that earthquake happens and you're on your own and you're going to hole up in your house, you're going to realize that you're missing things and there's no way to get them at that point. So you really do want to think about this as much as possible, but at the same time, start talking to your neighbors because you live in this community, you live in this neighborhood, you live in this neighborhood block. And that's really the focus of this presentation is individual preparedness, but at the same time, working together as a neighborhood block so that we can survive together. Additionally, if you're on your own and you're not talking to your neighbors, there are people who are going to get desperate. They're going to see that you have things, hear your generator on at night, see your lights on when the rest of the neighborhood is dark. And if you've shut yourself off from your neighbors and you're not talking to them, they're not going to be looking out for you. They're not going to say, hey, there's some weird car that's sitting here casing this house out that has all these lights on and has a generator running 24/7. They're not going to warn you about the people who are watching you, waiting for you to drop your guard and then to take advantage of you. We are really, truly stronger together. And the better prepared we are, the more that we know our neighbors, the more that we trust our neighbors, and the more that we plan together, the better that we're actually going to survive this together. For one thing, we can only have so much in terms of supplies of food and water. Larger families should have more, but they're going to burn through their supplies faster. I live alone, but I have toilet paper that can last me months, several months. That same amount of toilet paper for a family of 6, they'll burn through in days. So it's all about scale and making sure that you have enough, but there's only so much you can store. Um, and again, I mentioned this with camping, it's difficult to remember what you need to have 3 to 4 weeks of in extra supplies and make sure you're not missing something. So really, we can expect that our neighbors working together, we're going to be trading, we're going to be bartering stuff that I have extra of, someone else might need. And what I don't have enough of, someone else might have extra of. So we can trade for that. But we need to be careful so we're not trading valuable stuff, stuff that we're going to need later on. So it's all about balance. And as we talk to our neighbors, we should be looking out for one another. Excuse me. If I know my neighbors, I talk to them every day, I'm generally going to be looking out for them, and hopefully vice versa. If they see someone who's strange looking, they're in their car, they're watching me, my home, they're going to let me know. They're going to walk up, knock on my door, and say, "Hey, do you see that car out there? Yeah, it's been there for several hours now, and there's somebody in there, and they're kind of looking at your place because they see your lights are on when everybody else is dark." And that's really what we hope for. Best case scenario, we're looking out for each other. Um, there's some big ticket items that we can share amongst our neighborhood block. I mentioned the generator. If I'm the only one with the generator on my block and my lights are on, I've got plenty of fuel. I'm going to invite people over and say, "Hey, bring your cell phone charger, your battery chargers. Let's make sure that you have enough power to get through the next couple of days. And when you come over, when your battery's running low, come over." And if you have a big barbecue, hey, it takes a lot to heat that barbecue up. If I'm just cooking for myself or my family, that's propane that's going to waste. If I invite my neighbors over to cook their food as well, it's working together so that we survive together and not being wasteful. What's interesting to think about is if you're stocking up food, a lot of times you're going to have a limited amount of variety. If I got canned food and I buy it in bulk at Costco, um, it's going to be the same canned food. It's going to be the same dry food. And there's going to be maybe 3 or 4, 5 different varieties. If we're talking about a couple of weeks out, that is going to get mundane very quickly. But everybody plans differently. Everybody buys differently. So each household is going to be different, have a different variety of food. So even though I only have 3 different types of food, my next door neighbor will have 3 different types of food, and we can really start trading. Hey, I've had this dried pork for 5 days straight. I'm getting tired of it. You have dried chicken, and I can, trade you my dried pork for your dried chicken, or vice versa. Our vegans will have different things that they're going to be trading back and forth. And of course, now in college, personally, I had pizza pretty much every day of the week. But that doesn't work for a lot of people. Having that same food, having that same exact thing every single day, there's only so many ways you can cook it and do things different. So variety is going to be very important. Additionally, everybody is going to forget something. Unless you've lived on your own for months at a time in the woods, you're going to forget something. So hopefully you have more of something that you can trade and barter with for the thing that you don't have enough of, and vice versa. It's important to have a common operating picture, and that's really talking about pre-planning before the disaster. It is the exact wrong time to meet your neighbors and plan how you're going to respond after that 8.0 earthquake. If you start talking to this about your next door neighbor, start with them first. You start, talk to the next few neighbors out from your home. Find out, hey, have you thought about what's going to happen after an earthquake? The fire department says that we're going to be on our own for several days. There's not going to be power. There's not going to be clean water. The gas is probably going to be out. because most people have the automatic shutoffs that above a certain threshold will turn off your gas. And the gas company says, don't turn your gas back on until they come out and inspect. And especially for the people who don't understand that and turn it off manually, this becomes a massive problem. The gas company is not coming anytime soon after an earthquake to turn your gas back on. So our natural gas that we expect to come out of our stoves won't. And again, it's not the time to think about this after that 8.0. It's time to plan ahead of time. So make sure you start discussing this with your neighbors. Make sure that you're all on the same plan. What are we going to do? How are we going to divide up? What have you done to get prepared? This is what I've done. Start sharing information, because you're going to have ideas that they didn't think about, and they're going to have ideas that you didn't think about. And together as a group, we're going to come up with a comprehensive plan that we're all on the same page of. It's important to get to know your neighbors. If you live on your own and you don't know any of your neighbors, again, that is the exact wrong time to meet your neighbors right after that 8.0 earthquake. Get to know them on a first name basis, not hey you or hey Fido's owner, as a lot of our dog walkers know each other as. Get to know their skills, abilities, training, experience. Are they EMTs that live in your neighborhood? Do you have doctors? Do you have electricians? Do you have construction workers? People who are good with their hands? People who are cooks, chefs, people with medical skills? These are all important things to know about, because after an earthquake, you're going to need these. You're going to need every single one of these skills. And unless you can do it all yourself, you need to know which of your neighbors have these abilities. Plus, learn their strengths and vulnerabilities. Maybe there's some people are better leaders and it comes off natural. You talk to them and they just sound like a good leader. Other people will not lead whatsoever, and it is the exact wrong person to say, hey, I need you to take this team and go down the block and do this. Those people, and they're good team members, but they're not great team leaders. Other people have vulnerabilities that you need to address. Are they wheelchair bound? Are they, do they have other limitations that we need to be worried about? Are they on oxygen? Are they diabetic? Are they on medications they need every single day to live? Find these out ahead of time, because those are the people we're going to have to watch out for, because they might not have enough medical supplies. They might not have power to power their CPAB machine. These are the things we need to think about ahead of time. If you do assign roles to people, make sure that you have a primary, a secondary, a tertiary. Make sure there's 2 backups, because some people will be out of town. Some people will be at work. Some people may not be able to get home from days. Some people will be first responders, and you will not see them after the earthquake. That is the wrong person to have as your incident commander for your emergency response team, because they will be busy. They will not be at home. So always have backups. The saying is 2 is 1, 1 is none. And that's a good policy, good thing to think about through this. The pictures from this presentation are pre-COVID. Please wear face coverings and protect yourself and your neighbors during this time. Take training. The Map Your Neighborhood program, or Ready Your LA Neighborhood program, which is based on the Map Your Neighborhood program. These are good basic training courses. They only take a couple of hours to give you the basics on what to do in your neighborhood ahead of time and then right after the earthquake. Our January training will be on Map Your Neighborhood. So if you haven't signed up for that, I recommend that you do. We're going to go through the Map Your Neighborhood course. And again, Ready Your LA Neighborhood is based on Map Your Neighborhood. The City of Los Angeles' Emergency Management Department puts on Ready Your LA Neighborhood training. They're working on an online course right now. We expect it's going to be in March is when it will be available. So if you can, sign up for that, or just search on YouTube for Map Your Neighborhood and get your neighbors together. Start having this conversation and say, hey, let's go through this material together. Let's start planning. Key to that is really start to look for local gathering areas and tell everybody, okay, right after the earthquake, everybody, check on yourselves, check on your families, make sure your home is safe, make sure you don't have a gas leak, and then let's meet at this gathering area so we can discuss how bad it is and what we need to do next. You're going to be looking for who's missing. Check in with your neighbors. Say, hey, I know home at 421, there's latchkey kids there. And this is in the middle of the day around 4 o'clock. Their parents don't get back until 7 o'clock at night. Has anybody checked on these kids to make sure they're okay? If not, let's go check on them right now. Also, it's important to know this gathering area needs to be in a safe place. Don't have it in the middle of the street where cars may be driving through. I think that should be obvious, but it needs to be said. Don't have it directly under power lines that may come down. Don't have it under trees that may come down. We don't know if there's going to be an aftershock, but we should always assume that there will be an aftershock. In fact, Ridgecrest, for example, was a major earthquake localized in Ridgecrest. They've had tens of thousands of aftershocks since that earthquake, that major earthquake. So we will definitely have aftershocks. It's important to make sure that you're always in a safe position wherever you're meeting. Be aware of your surroundings. Make sure there's not going to be stuff that's going to put you in danger. The first thing you want to do is send out teams to check for the people who are unaccounted for. Make sure that everyone in your block is safe and accounted for. If they're not, go look for them. Again, we go back to the vulnerable people who are elderly, maybe wheelchair bound, using walkers, especially if you're in a multi-story building and you have people who are wheelchair bound on an upper floor. Your elevators are not going to work. They won't be able to get down the stairs easily in a wheelchair. So it's important to check on them because they're not coming out. They're going to need your help. Latchkey kids, again, kids that are at home during the day without parents, go check on them, but make sure you talk to their parents and make sure that the kids know that you're going to be checking in on them. I mentioned the mobility challenge, walkers, wheelchairs. There's a ton of different challenges that people have that you need to be aware of and help them out. People who are deaf, people who have different languages, they're not going to communicate as easily as the people on this presentation might. And again, the people who have oxygen, are on oxygen or sleep with CPAP machines, these people are going to have certain challenges that you as a neighbor might be able to help them out with. After you send out a search team, not search and rescue, just a search team, form a damage assessment team and go door to door, checking for damage. Maybe someone's out of town, but as you walk up, you see that their home is severely damaged and you can smell gas as you're coming up. Well, if you turn the gas off, you might avert an explosion or a fire at their home. But only turn off gas if you smell it, see it, or hear it. You see it, it's a wave. If you look through gas that's leaking, you'll see like a wavy line. It looks almost like a mirage. And gas coming out of a line that's been breached has a pretty distinctive hiss to it. And then natural gas naturally does not have any odor, but Southern California Gas and all the gas companies add a bitterant to it so that you can smell that gas if it's leaking. So if you hear it, smell it, or see it, turn off the gas. Otherwise, don't. Again, you're not supposed to turn the gas back on if you've turned it off. And the reason for that is there are pilot lights that are burning the natural gas so that when you turn on your stove or your water heater or your furnace, it just comes on. If you turn off the gas, those pilot lights go out. You turn the gas back on and you forget one of the pilot lights to light, and suddenly you have a gas leak in your home. Hopefully we'll have help okay signs out in our neighborhoods. If you see somebody with a help sign up, go knock on their door. Don't try and ring the doorbell if the power's out. It's not going to work. But knock on the door, make sure they're okay. If maybe they put the help sign up by mistake, or maybe they really do need help. That's the point of the help sign. Get someone's attention, and then you go find out what's going on. But and I can't stress this enough, nobody goes anywhere alone. It's important to pick someone you're going to be with, not just for a few hours, stick with them indefinitely. Maybe for the day, you're with somebody for the entire day. You're responsible for each other, your partner or your battle buddy. Even if you go to the restroom, go as a pair. Maybe not be in the same restroom together at the same time, but right outside the door, just making sure, hey, something happened. Who knows? People have been known to have heart attacks on the toilet. And that's not when you want to find out, oh yeah, so and so went to the restroom 3 hours ago and we haven't seen him since. There's not too much you can do about it, that if that person has a problem. But if you hear somebody make some weird noise and collapse off the toilet while you're right outside, maybe you can do something about it. The neighborhood disaster resiliency plan should be written down and shared with your neighbors. This is a document that should outline where people are going to go, where people are going to meet, what they're going to be doing. And this should be documentation that you keep to yourselves semi-privately about what people have and what people need. They have vulnerabilities. That's something you want to be able to have documented, because those are the people you need to check on first. But if they have certain skills, they're EMTs, doctors, constructions, nobody caught that? Construction workers, carpenters, electricians. These are people that are going to be extremely valuable in doing repairs to damage, or fixing, wires that might be frayed or broken, or short circuiting. An electrician is going to hopefully know what to do about that. And if you don't, you should not go anywhere near sparking lines. There's certain big ticket items that only certain people are going to have. A chainsaw, a generator. Maybe some people have barbecues, but maybe a few people have really big barbecues. And then you can have multiple people cooking food on those larger barbecues at the same time. People who have swimming pools, that's a good thing to know about, because after 5-7 days, 2 weeks, people are going to start smelling pretty badly if they're not washing regularly. Don't drink pool water. I shouldn't need to say any more than that. And then identify what teams need to be set up. I mentioned the search team. I mentioned the damage assessment team. Identify these teams ahead of time. And if you do assign team leaders to these, make sure you have 2 backups for each team leader, not in the same household, different neighbors, so that hopefully someone is there to take the role of this team leader, even if other people are not. They're on vacation or they're at work. After the disaster occurs, when you don't have power, you don't have running water, the fire department's not coming, 911's not available, not hours after, but days after, you should be meeting daily. Meet in the morning, maybe meet at noon or something, but share information with each other. See how you're doing, check up on each other, make sure, people who've never been in an earthquake, and it's the 8.0 earthquake, it's the big one on the San Andreas, and it's their first earthquake. They're going to lose their minds. But with their neighbors, their family support, we're going to get through this together. So check in on each other, make sure you're doing okay. And this is not just for an earthquake. Check in on your neighbors now. Make sure you're doing okay. These are challenging times, things that no one has planned for, no one has been thinking about. Make sure your neighbors are okay, but be safe about it. Find out, how people are doing on their supplies. Are they running short of anything? Do they have anything extra that they're willing to trade or possibly even share? I'm not saying give away. We're not, here to supply the entire neighborhood with our supplies, but you're bartering, trading, sharing with each other, making sure that you're okay, making sure that you don't become desperate or your neighbors don't. Establish a daycare. If you have kids and you need to work on things, it's difficult to watch the kids and do whatever work needs to be done to repair the damages that have occurred, or to prepare for things for the day. The elderly, They might not be as physically able as some of us are, but they can generally watch kids. So it's a good pairing right there, having the kids and the elderly together. Don't maybe have one, 90-year-old with 50 12-year-olds. That may not go well. But, pair them up, make sure there's enough support, make sure you're checking in on what they need, and give them things to do to take care of each other and occupy each other's time. Establish a medical care center. This is critical. You will have injuries. There will be a lot of injuries. And if you have all the people who are injured that need medical attention, that need medical supervision together in one place, you pool the resources, and one person or two or three people who are medically trained can observe and take care of a larger number of people. There will be people who are not prepared. There will be people who don't think they need to prepare. There will be these people who are in for a very rude awakening after that earthquake happens and they don't have food and water. They can do things that earn the support of the neighbors. We shouldn't be talking about, running a charity necessarily right after an earthquake, but there's things that need to be done. There's damage that needs to be repaired. There's cleaning that needs to happen, cooking that needs to occur, people that need to run, help out with the daycare, people that need to help out with the medical center. These are jobs that people can do to make this neighborhood community work together. And that earns their support, their share in the community. I want to emphasize this 5-day thing. I think after 5 days of the markets being empty, no running water or no clean running water, no power, no support from the local governments. And when I say no support, they're going to be there. They're going to be doing everything they can. Logistically, the numbers don't work. You will be on your own because there's way more of us than there are of the people in government, the people who are first responders, even the National Guard. There's way more of us than there are of them. So it's not to say that we're going to get abandoned. We're not. It's just that at day 5, things are going to get very interesting. So I emphasize that most people will only have 3 to 7 days worth of food if they're rationing and water. They're going to run out of water faster than they run out of food. So 3 days out, they're probably going to deplete whatever water they have, and now they're going to start to get desperate. Desperate people are unpredictable. Unpredictable people are dangerous. That's not to say that people are dangerous. They can be. But if you don't know what someone's going through and they have nothing to lose, they become dangerous because you don't know what they're going to do. We want to work together as a neighborhood block to reduce the chances of one of our neighbors becoming desperate. With that said, I want to give a little bit of philosophy on the types of crimes that I think about. And then we're going to have a panel of people who are going to speak and give you their philosophies. And then we'll open up the panel to discussion and questions. I generally say that there's 3 types of crime: crime of opportunity, crime of desperation, and then irrational crime. Generally speaking, if people have something to lose, they're not going to be criminals stealing, robbing other people. But there are people out there who will take advantage of a situation. If you leave a laptop in your car on your front seat, and you leave your car on a public street in a parking structure or a lot, there is a very good chance someone will break into your car and steal your laptop. Or even if it looks like a laptop, it's in a bag, it looks like a laptop bag, there may not be a laptop in there, but there's a very good chance if you leave that car alone for several days, someone will pop your window and take that bag. That's the simple reality of things. It's something that's quick and easy, and they can smash the window, grab the bag, and either drive or run away. And there's very little anybody can do about that to stop that, aside from making sure that you're hiding your laptop, your valuables, making them not visible, making it so it's not obvious that you have something that people will want to steal. Those people who are looking for opportunities, they want to avoid confrontation. If somebody says, "Hey, you, what are you doing?" they're going to retreat. If you challenge somebody who is looking for a quick and easy smash and grab, they're not going to want to be there for very long. These people are less likely to risk personal injury or harm, and just as likely, they don't want to harm other people. They don't want to go to jail for starting a fight. They want to take your laptop, smash your window, take your laptop, and run away. These are the people who are going to be looking to take advantage of the situation. There's going to be chaos. Police are not going to be everywhere. Police are going to be busy. Then there's going to be a lot of opportunities for stealing something, robbing something, getting away with it without any consequences. These people, while they're not looking for confrontation, they can be patient. They can be persistent. They can scope something out that looks like, hey, that single home on this block that has their lights on 24/7 while no one else has lights, they probably have stuff in there. So let's scope this out. Let's check them out. They're not coming out. They're not talking to their neighbors. Let's see their patterns, learn their patterns. When do they sleep? Sleeping is, at nighttime, typically. Most people sleep at the same time. That's when they're going to break into your home and go through your stuff and get away with it. Again, they're looking for those easy targets. They're looking for households or individuals who are not part of a group, that are on their own. And they're looking for you to not be paying attention. If you have your headphones on, walking down a dark alleyway, you're not going to see somebody who's coming up on you trying to rob you. If you are walking around, one headphone in, one headphone out, your hands are out, not in your pockets, and you're looking around periodically, you're going to more than likely see somebody coming than the person who is in their on their own, in their own little world, with not paying attention to the world around them and making themselves an easy target. Opportunists will use threats of force or coercion. They have no problem threatening you. If you resist them, you confront them, they're generally bullies and they're going to run away. But if they threaten you with a knife, or they pretend to have a gun and you cower in fear, that's exactly what they're looking for. If they threaten you with a finger in a pocket and you reach for something at your belt line behind your back and tell them, you better back off or you're going to not like what you find, there's maybe a good chance that they just had a finger in their pocket and they're not willing to take the chance that you're not joking about what you have. Again, they're patient. They're going to be willing to wait for good payoffs or potential good payoffs. If you look like you have something that they want to steal, they're going to take the time to figure out how to get it from you. Crimes of desperation. This is where things get challenging. This is why you want to make sure that your neighbors don't become desperate. Desperate people are unpredictable. Unpredictable people are dangerous. If they believe that you have something that they themselves need for survival, they're more willing to confront you and cause physical harm to you to get what they think they need to survive. And if they're confronted, they're less likely to run away. In fact, if you confront someone who's desperate, they might actually lash out first. They want what you have. And if you are threatening them more than what the situation's already threatening them with, starvation, they've got kids at home and they can't feed them, then they're going to try and strike first before you have a chance to defend yourself and then steal your stuff. And they're willing possibly to even kill you to take what you have. I say 5 days is going to be interesting. Day 15, it's going to be terrifying. because that's when people have utterly run out of supplies and food. And it's not about themselves, it's about their kids. If you're a parent and you have a family at home and you have no way to feed them, and you've been living on scraps, you've been living on trash, you're going to do whatever it takes to take care of your kids, even if it comes down to killing other people. Irrational crimes. These are, again, unpredictable. These are people who, for no good reason, no logical reason, it could be mental illness, could be jealousy, revenge, crimes of passion. There's no telling what's motivating these people, and there might not be a good reason for it. No rational motive. These people are extremely dangerous because you don't know what they're going to do. They might not have a sense of self-preservation. I put that they may risk self-harm. I'm not talking about getting hurt. I mean, they may literally hurt themselves for no reason at all. And that's what's scary about this. These are the ones who may kill you. Not because there's a reason to, just because. That's what makes that this unpredictability so dangerous. And there's very little we can do about this. You need to be aware of it. You need to try and gauge someone's motives. And if you're sensing that this person, let's use the word crazy here. This person's crazy. That is someone who is extremely dangerous and needs to be mitigated and watched, and try and keep them out of your neighborhood as best as you can. Situational awareness is key. If you're caught unaware, that is the worst case scenario. I mentioned the jogger running down a dark alleyway with their headphones on and not paying attention to what's going on around them. That is a recipe for getting mugged, because you won't see the person coming who's deciding that they're going to take whatever you have. Maybe that Apple Watch on your wrist, that, or those $500 Apple headphones that they just came out with. That doesn't take much to take those away from you. Always be aware of what is going on to the left, to the right, in front, in back of you, above you, and below you. The saying is, keep your head on a swivel. Don't focus on any one thing. Just kind of, look around periodically. If you're talking to someone, having a conversation, don't just focus on that person you're talking with. Look around, just, what's behind them. Hopefully they're looking what's behind you, to the left, to the right. Just keep that awareness going. What you don't see will get you in trouble every single time. You don't see that person that's watching you. You don't see that person who's waiting for you. That's when you get in trouble. If you're on your cell phone and you're walking along and you're focused on the cell phone and you don't see the giant manhole open in front of you, that's going to get you in trouble every single time. Again, don't focus on one thing. Always be observant. Listen, smell, look around. Stop, breathe, look, listen frequently. Can't emphasize this enough. Don't be in your own world. Even in you're talking to other people, just pay attention to what's going on around you frequently. There's the states of alertness: white, yellow, orange, red, and black. And this is called the Cooper color codes. White is you're feeling safe. You're not paying attention to anything around you. You're at home. Your doors are locked. It's fairly reasonable that you're safe there, so you don't have to be all that attentive and alert. But if you're outside, you're on your own, you're outside, or you're with other people, you should be in a yellow state. That's paying attention. Again, that looking around periodically, listening, smelling for maybe a gas leak is going on. Things are going on around you. Pay attention to them. There's no reason to assume that your life is in danger or something is going to happen. Just be aware. So if something does change in your environment, something is different, you're observing that and paying attention to it. If something does change, something looks suspicious, you have this weird feeling, then you go to the orange state. You start paying attention a little bit more. You have a heightened sense of alertness. You're actively looking around for threats, potential things that can become potential immediate threats to yourself, to your safety, to the people around you. Start thinking about, what am I going to do about this? Hey, that person looks kind of strange over there. It's 100 degrees out right now. We're in the valley. It's 110 degrees. This person has a heavy trench coat on. Something's not right about this person. Start paying attention to this person. Start doing a threat assessment. Is this someone who is up to no good? Is this person maybe crazy? There is no good reason for this person to have a trench coat on. You don't know what's underneath it. It might be nothing. It might be someone who literally has nothing on it, and they're going to, reveal themselves to you. But they're not any more of a threat than that. This is something you want to be aware of before it happens, because what if they do have something under their trench coat and they are looking to be dangerous? They're looking to get something out of you. Have a way out. Have an escape route already planned. If things go south, what am I going to do about it? Or if things go south, maybe I'm going to respond aggressively. I'm going to confront this person, but always have that backup plan of how to get out of there in case, they pull something out that you're not prepared for. Red is when you have an immediate threat. You now have identified this person is definitely up to no good. They are looking very aggressively. They're starting to approach you, and they don't look happy. Be prepared to fight or flee. That fight or flight instinct. Black is what happens when you're actually fighting. This person is approaching you aggressively, and they throw a punch out of nowhere for no good reason. Now you're in a fight. Are you going to get away from them, or are you going to commit to this fight and you're going to try and win? What you don't want to do is be in the white code where you're not paying attention, your guard is down, and that's when that person throws a punch. You didn't even see them coming. Suddenly you're on the ground and your jaw hurts. That's a bad place to be. That's when you panic, and you don't want to panic. Start to elevate, pay attention to what's going around, and as things get weird, start to elevate and start to think about, what am I going to do about this? How am I going to get out of here? How am I going to respond in case I can't get out of here? Operational security is about not revealing everything right away. If you don't trust people, don't tell them your entire life story. They don't need to know that. If you don't trust people, don't tell them that you have, stuff, jewelry, firearms, whatever, lots of money and cash. Get to know your neighbors, find out who you can trust. And most importantly, find out who you can't trust, because those are the ones you need to keep an eye on, because we will have neighbors who are up to no good. It's simply the reality of things. And these aren't the people you want to bring into your inner circle. But you want to establish relationships with your neighbors, the ones that you do trust, form a circle of trust, and then share information with each other. Share your plans so that you can work together as a team. In terms of security, we're talking about 5 days after that earthquake when things start to get interesting. You want to be visible. If you're in an active community and there's people outside talking, looking around, being observant, visibly being observant, the people who are up to no good that want to take advantage of the situation will keep driving or keep walking. They won't want to do anything because they know they're being watched. It's a very good idea to assign shifts to people who are always going to be outside during that shift. If everyone's indoors, their doors are closed, they're locked, no one's paying attention to what's going on the road, that's when you get into trouble. That's when you have people who will try and take advantage of the situation because they think that you're on your own. But if they see people out there who are talking to each other and visibly looking around, they're going to keep on going. They're going to find an easier neighborhood to try and take advantage of. One thing I encourage people to do is be friendly. You see someone that you don't know, say hello to them, wave to them, say hi, how's it going? You know, start up a conversation, find out what they're doing there. You're not going to say exactly that. What are you doing here? Why are you here on my block? Who are you? But hey, my name is so-and-so. What's your name? You live around here? Try and have that conversation so you gauge their motives. If they're up to no good and they suddenly have unwanted attention, they're going to get out of there as quickly as possible. And then you know, hey, and share this information with your neighbors. Hey, this guy, he was about 6 foot, tats down one arm, in a cutoff shirt, and wearing a backpack. Get that information out so you can keep an eye on these people if they come back. Chances are they won't. They get recognized, they're going to get out of there and move on to the next neighborhood. Everybody should have an FRS radio with them. That way you can be communicating. And I'm talking about everyone. You, your spouse, your kids, everyone should have a radio with a private tone on it. And that way you're not picking up other conversations from other neighborhoods. FRS radios will be heavily used during a disaster, and there's going to be a lot of radio communication on it. There's going to be a lot of noise. And if you just hear hissing or other conversations going on, you're going to turn the volume down, and then that radio becomes useless. Everyone should have a radio, and you should have a pre-planned code word for an emergency. Maybe have various code words. But if you hear this code word over the radio, everyone comes out. If someone walks up and they're being aggressive and they're trying to confront people and maybe, you know, get something from you, or, you know, harassing one person, and you say this code word over the radio and 50 people come out, that person is going to back down real fast and try and get out of there. But always assume that your radio communications are being monitored, that your radio communications are not private, because they aren't. Anybody can hear anybody's radio communications. So if someone is trying to find out what your channel is, and now they've found it because there's very few channels, they're going to be listening to you for a little bit. Try and find out what your schedules are, what your plans are. And that's why it's important to have code words and not just say, hey, I have an emergency. I want to emphasize this. Visible weapons actually make you a target. If you're walking around with a gun strapped to your hip, everyone is going to be seeing that. Everybody's going to be watching for you, and they're going to take you out first. So if you're armed, don't let everybody know that. Opportunists will skip the active neighborhoods, blocks, and they're going to try and find easier targets. When it comes to what to do when things go south, when things get bad, this is where you want to have a verbal discussion with your trusted neighbors, that circle of trust. Don't write this plan down, but talk to them and say, hey, these are the nonverbal cues that we're going to use ahead of time. This is, you know, if I say this phrase or this word, or I make this hand signal, this is what I need you to do. I'm trying to let you know what's going on, and that I'm going to need backup, or I need you to flank this person or do something. You want to identify easily defensible areas in case things, again, they go bad. There is an active threat and a persistent threat, and they're here to take something, or they're not afraid to get injured and not afraid to cause harm or possibly kill somebody. Identify where you're going to go, where you're going to rally, and then what you're going to do about that. If you're going to confront this person or you're just going to shelter in place. And again, these are verbal discussions that you have with your trusted neighbors, the ones that you know are going to back you up and the ones that you're going to back up as well. In January, we're going to have our next presentation, January 20th, from 7 to 9 p.m. will be on Map Your Neighborhood. Our friend from the Valley, Janet Gibson, will be presenting on this. She's done this presentation many times. Excellent speaker. I encourage everybody to sign up for this on Eventbrite. Go to LAFD CERT Central-January 2021.eventbrite.com, or you can just go to events.ntp-la.org and you can find the links, or just go to Eventbrite and search for LAFD CERT. Sign up, and then we'll see you in January. So at this point, I would like to, we'll go to a panel. I apologize, this is the first time we're going to be doing a panel. So let me see who's available. Chief Kepner, I'd like you to introduce yourself and then give your perspective and your thoughts about what things are going to look like after a disaster.
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. My name is Kady Kepner, and I'm the Assistant Bureau Commander for our Operations Central Bureau with the Los Angeles Fire Department. From what I've heard, Patrick, you're pretty spot on, and you've everything that I was going to say, you've pretty much presented in your PowerPoint or presentation. But one thing I do want to, a couple things I want to say is, first of all, hope is not a strategy. So for everyone out there that's hoping the big one won't hit or hoping there won't be a natural disaster in the next few months, that's not a strategy. Preparedness is the most important part of making it through a disaster, whether it be an earthquake or anything else. So last time I presented with you, Patrick, we talked about kind of what the fire department would be doing immediately after an emergency and how we may not make it to individual homes or people within the first few days because we have to prioritize where our resources are needed the most. And usually that's where the biggest life hazard or life safety is going to be affected. So there may be neighborhoods that we don't get to within the first few days, and that's because our resources will be so overwhelmed and limited. So it's so important that you, within your neighborhoods and communities, are able to help each other and help sustain food, water, emergency, medical care for minor injuries. So I won't get too much further into that, but within 5 to 15 days, we're going to be getting a lot of help from our regional partners, whether it be through mutual aid or automatic aid. We'll be getting resources from all over the state to assist us in our continuity of operations. And every bureau has a plan as far as continuity of operations and getting back to our mission critical plan and what we need to accomplish. Again, especially life safety being our #1 priority and being able to respond to emergencies where we can assist the communities and the public. Each bureau also has a resiliency and recovery captain that helps assist with this process as far as the recovery after an emergency. And as you know, Patrick, we're in constant contact, and that individual is in constant contact with the CERT captains in order to get information out and information being brought back into us as to where we are most needed. There will be shelters open for people who do run out of food or water, but they may not be in a location that's within a close proximity to where you're at. So, but within the first few days, we're going to be working through our Emergency Operations Center, our Department Operations Center, to be able to open shelters and assist people that absolutely can't make it, whether their home has been destroyed or, like I said, they run out of the essentials. But most important is going to be your neighborhood and these CERT teams and the neighborhood teams so that you guys can look out for each other. And like you said, Patrick, I liked what you talked about is get to know your neighbors now, because in an emergency, when you're knocking on that door, for your neighbor 3 doors down, if you've met them before, talked to them and have built a relationship, you're going to have a comfort level already. And that's a big part of surviving after a disaster, is being able to feel comfortable where you're at, who you're with, that they're going to be able to assist with all your needs as well. Evacuation, some neighborhoods will need to be evacuated, and we will have people, hopefully to assist with that and obtaining locations for you to go to. And then within 5 to 15 days, hopefully some kind of repopulation as well. Hopefully we will be getting some resources back. Electricity may be out for weeks, but things may be coming on as far as government resources as quickly as we possibly can, working with our government officials. But again, hope is not a strategy. So prepare for weeks if you can, for 2 to 3 weeks with food, water, generators, fuel, all of that, because if you're prepared, then you can help out your neighbors as well. Unless there's any specific questions regarding the fire department and our actions, that's kind of all I want to present, because you've done such a great job, Patrick. So I can wait for questions when we're done.
Thank you, Chief. I'd like to introduce Chin, who is our South Bureau CERT coordinator. Chin, do you have a few words you'd like to say in your perspective?
I'm sitting here unmuting myself. Everything you've seen in this presentation is true, as they used to say in the old Dragnet series. And this is something that all of our neighborhoods and neighbors need to get into. I know it takes you into a place where you might have to interact with your neighbors, but as you've seen in this particular presentation, it's unrealistic for us to think that we can get by alone. And even for those people who have also done their own individual preparedness, it's still unrealistic that you're going to make this alone. So the only thing I can say is that we as a community, we need to come together. We need to make this plan make this planning happen. And like Chief Kepner said, it's not a plan. So definitely reach out to us. One thing that we've got going on is the neighborhood team program, which really brings all this stuff together, like the Ryland program, neighborhood training, and even your senior lead officers and neighborhood watch. Let's really start pulling that in these communities, because you see what you're up against. And I think that's really all I have to say on that one.
Thank you, Chin. And Chief, I don't remember if I said thank you, but thank you for your words and for being here. Justin, would you unmute yourself and introduce yourself, and then your perspective?
All right. Can you guys see me okay?
We can.
Great. Great. Patrick, thank you so much. My name is Justin Flemming. I'm a Marine Corps veteran, Marine Corps combat veteran of the Iraq War. I currently, along with my executive officer, who's law enforcement, we run a firearms training company. So I kind of had talked to Patrick a little bit, and he'd asked me to bring kind of my perspective from a military background, having been field infantry. Patrick, you pretty much covered all of it. I had pages and pages of stuff, and you pretty much hit every point. So just something that I did want to touch on, kind of from a physical security standpoint, if we do go, weeks and days and without law enforcement or first responders, just because the Marine Corps, we got to do everything in 5 paragraphs or less, or have it written in crayon. So something for physical security purposes. There's a great acronym called SAFESOC, and it covers security. So who's going to be on your security team? Who are you looking for to provide security for your neighborhoods? What are their roles? Are they armed? Are they unarmed? Like Patrick said, armed security in and of itself can carry its own set of problems and issues. So that's something that you as a team and a security team need to kind of figure out the depth of the security you want to provide for your neighborhood or your area of operation. A is avenues of approach. If someone is going to come to you, know your boundaries, what your area is, what your neighborhood is, and what are the most likely ways people that you don't necessarily want there are going to get in. Know where people are going to come in. Walk your area of operation. Know it well. You should. It's your neighborhood, but really with a discerning eye of what the most likely avenues of approach are. Go ahead and walk it physically. Take your security team out there and walk that area. Do your recon. Fields of observation. Make sure if you set people up for security that they can actually see what they're looking at. Don't stick them behind a building or behind a tree or someplace where they can't see. Make sure they've got open fields of observation so they can see what's going on, what's coming down the road, what's going to be coming into those likely avenues of approach. Entrenchment. the other thing too, if you are, you maybe have people that are desperate out there, you don't want to just, stick your guy out there on a lawn chair by himself and have him watch the block. Put him someplace safe, entrench him where he can see things, but he's safe if he does need to hunker down. Supplemental positions. For many different reasons. Maybe you need to move because situations change. Maybe there's an aftershock that's taking your initial positions and compromise them. Maybe it's unsafe where maybe you had everything perfectly planned out, and when the disaster happens, all of a sudden every place you thought was going to be the best place in the world has been compromised, and now it's a dangerous place to be. Have supplemental positions to put your folks and your security team. Obstacles. Again, that kind of goes into avenues of approach. Have entry control points. Don't just let people come walking into your neighborhood. Make it difficult for people to drive a vehicle and actually have it where you can get out, maybe search the vehicle depending on, how long or what you think your threat level is. Don't just pile up a bunch of trash in the road. Make them so they have to slow the vehicle down before they start approaching where you've got your people that are checking people in and out of your neighborhood. Make them serpentine a little bit, slow the vehicle down so they can't just hit the gas and plow right through, whatever the washing machine or whatever you decide you're going to put in the middle of the road. And finally, camouflage. And Patrick really spoke to this point. If you're the only neighborhood that's got your stuff together, you got all your lights on and everybody's, standing out there in the open, and at night you're, having a block party and everybody else is suffering, you're going to draw a lot of unwanted attention to yourself. So camouflage your positions. Make sure not everybody needs to know where your security team is, what's going on, or what assets you guys have available to you. So again, I think Patrick pretty much covered all of those, but having it in that nice, easy acronym kind of helps you keep it all organized when you're putting it together with yourself and your security team.
What was the acronym again?
It's SAFESOC, SAFESOC.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right. Chin, thank you, Justin. Chin, did you manage to get any CPAB members to join us?
I'm
All right.
CPAB.
Oh.
Does that help?
Yeah, sure. Judy, do you have any perspective on this topic?
Sure. All I have to say is one thing. I don't know, the officers are thin. They're going to be around. They're going to try do their best, but they have to prioritize, obviously. If they're going to try to help LAFD and assist in keeping people away from the fire or evacuating a fire area, don't be offended. Don't be, don't take it personally. The people who are doing their jobs to keep things from getting worse are doing their jobs. And don't pick a fight. Just go and stay focused on your neighborhood and who needs help and how to organizing your neighbors. That's how a lot of fights start, and that's not good for any of us.
Thank you, Judy.